Guns. Oh boy, this is a fun topic. This is a military surplus iceberg, and this is me explaining it, so if either of those things don't interest you, go ahead and click away. For those who are choosing to stay, whether it's because they're outraged or because they are legitimately interested, thank you. And before I begin, let's get the messy part out of the way. Politics. Oh boy. Believe it or not, I am one of the millions of American assholes on the internet who also wants to be a content creator. Shocking. I know, truly shocking. I just moved my mic, so if the audio levels just got a little fucky-wucky, sorry. Now, guns are a heavily debated, extraordinarily political issue in the United States. So I'm just going to keep this very brief and say what we need, in my opinion, is a middle ground. We don't need to fully ban guns, we need to prioritize mental health. Some guns you just should not be fucking allowed to buy. With that out of the way, yes, I am pro Second Amendment. No, I am not, like, you should be able to own a fully automatic weapon. I'd say it's a pretty reasonable take. If you disagree, shit your pants, do whatever. We can disagree and it's not the end of the world. If you don't really care for the political part, same. Let's just get into this shit. Buckle your fuckles, get cozy. Once again, thank you so much for watching. Alright, level 1. Knows a little about military surpluses. There's descriptions on the side here, which normally would mean that I don't have to come up with something funny, but I'm gonna come up with something funny. Also, I don't know if I said this in the intro bit, but this is a fan-requested video. A fan did make this iceberg and then send it to me and was like, hey, could you do a video on this? And as you all know, I don't say no to you guys. The entire true crime series is a standing testament to that. So, level 1, aka enabling my enablers. Let's go ahead and get into this. Grand ping. The M1 Garand makes a nice little ping noise when it's done and you've gone through the entire clip. And I think that the Garand ping should be on a top 10 list of most satisfying sounds known to humanity. Here's an audio clip of that. Just go ahead and listen to it. JFK was killed with a Carcano rifle. For the uninitiated, a Carcano rifle is a specific Italian styling of rifle, also used as a blanket term for any Italian rifle. It's mostly bolt-action rifles and some carbines. Carbines being semi-automatic, bolt-action meaning that you gotta use a little bolt doodad to kick a shell out and then reload it with. But yes, this is a gun that killed JFK. It is a Carcano rifle. Some bozo, if you believe the one specific circumstance of how JFK died, got ahead, he went in this little scope right here, looked in it, and was like, ooh, that's the president, take the fucking shot. And then he did. And whoops, there goes JFK, national tragedy, now used to be joked about by some internet personality a few decades later. Imagine fucking dying. Couldn't be me, but you know who it was? It was JFK, and everyone who was in the towers in 9/11. Next entry. Believes FUD lore. Now, FUD lore is primarily a phrase bandied about in the gun-owning community, relating to Elmer Fudd. Yes, the hunter from... what fucking cartoon is that guy in? Looney Tunes? Yeah, he's always trying to get Bugs Bunny. Anyway, FUD lore is primarily ideas like, you don't need anything but hunting rifles, which I honestly don't think is that bad of a take. We definitely should not be having people buying guns that are just one part away from a fully automatic weapon, but a lot of people think that FUD lore is kind of bullshit, which, to each their own, that's their own opinion, that's their own choice. It's my job to just explain it. So FUD lore is primarily the belief that is rooted in a certain outsider ideal of gun ownership. Military surplus firearms can be quite pricey. Now, this is pretty fair. A lot of military surplus firearms, obviously being guns that the military has too many of, get thrown into the market, and then they sit there for a while until they eventually become parts of history, and that obviously makes them higher in demand and thus higher in price. So we're on a classic firearms website on this screen right here. The FBI is watching me even more intently. Hi, Mr. FBI agent. Don't worry, my plans for domestic terrorism aren't happening yet. Now, as we can see, the in-stock stuff goes up to about $1,700. We've got this Carcano rifle for $219. That's a pretty solid price for a gun, for those not in the know, which is kind of what I'm assuming if you're watching this video. If not, just sit through the first few levels while I explain it to the people who don't get it. Now, if we go ahead and we go out of that, you can see that the max price jumps all the way up to $6,000. This is stuff that's out of stock. And if we scroll further down, we can see that a lot of these rifles get very pricey. That is, if I can see the price of any of them that are out of stock. But basically, $699.99 that gets you a very solid new rifle. For an old rifle, that's a lot. We have $1,400 right here for an M1 carbine. That's a lot of money to pay for a gun. And some people like to throw around that kind of money into guns. Some people don't. Personally, the guns that I own are shotguns because you really don't need much else. Does your hunting for you. Does your home defense. Not too bulky. Not going to raise any eyebrows. A shotgun, in my opinion, does everything I need guns for. If I needed a different gun, I'd go out and get one. But I'm a cheap motherfucker. I am not paying $1,400 for what is basically a tool to me. Mini calibers are very old and were first used in military surplus firearms. Again, military surplus firearms are guns that are no longer needed by the military and thus considered surplus supplies, and thus thrown out into various shops on the market to get the military more money. Because we love that. We love the military having more money to just ruthlessly blow up poor children in other countries. You know, I really love the United States military. Now, of course, with these guns obviously being older weapons, believe it or not, they're going to use some fucky-wucky calibers, because old guns used some weird-ass shit. Fucking elephant guns, you're obviously not going to find any of those in a military surplus store, but what I'm making the point of here is that older guns had weird sizes. They used weird-ass bullets. So, military surplus firearms have bullets that are either going to be super cheap for you because no one else buys them, or fucking impossible to find because no one else buys them. Call of World at War, and Battlefield 1. I'm gonna presume that this entry is talking about Call of Duty. I have never heard of a Call of World at War, but Call of Duty World at War and Battlefield 1 are two video games set in the time period where a lot of military surplus firearms were in common circulation amongst infantrymen, and thus they are the arsenal you have to play with in the video games, which obviously introduced a lot of new people who are into this kind of thing to these specific firearms. And with that, we're done with level 1. Now, obviously, if you're still watching this far into the video, thank you so much for that. I'm going to go ahead and take a moment to share what is powering this video, which is caffeine, most likely a manic episode, and Eurobeat. I fucking love Eurobeat. Eurobeat slaps. Go listen to this shit. And now we're on to level 2 of the widest motherfucker I have ever covered as an iceberg chart. Once again, I just said it in the last little clip that made up this video. Thank you so much for still being here. Let's go ahead, buckle your fuckles, and get into this. Forgotten Weapons channel. Now, I'm not on the YouTube account that I actually watch videos on. Believe it or not, I upload a shit ton of stuff to this channel, but I do have a separate account just for watching YouTube, and I am subscribed to Forgotten Weapons on that account. I fucking love this channel. It might be a while between bursts of interest in weaponry, but this channel legitimately has some of the most interesting shit to talk about when it comes to guns and firearms history. And as someone who loves history, who loves weapons as a, not only a martial thing, but just as a historical hobby thing, this channel is the shit. If you like firearms and firearm history and you don't know about Forgotten Weapons, go ahead and check it out. And even if you don't really like that kind of stuff, you'd probably still find a bit of this interesting just because of some of the stupid ass shit that people came up with. Like some of the ideas people had of a metal pipe to spit fireballs and lead. It's dumb as all hell. But just reading about it, just listening to these videos is very interesting. Next entry we have is an opinionated one. FUD lore is bullshit. Now, I can understand the take here. Obviously, everyone is entitled to their opinions. There is this kind of idea in the modern era that if we disagree, it's the end of the fucking world. You're gonna have a seizure, you're gonna contract Ebola, somehow you're gonna give somebody else AIDS, and you're gonna fucking bleed out on the floor, dying and shitting your pants the entire way. This is not what happens when people disagree. When people disagree, you just accept that people disagree, and you move the fuck on. I personally am kind of a FUD lore type of guy. I understand the historical hobby aspect of it because I do collect swords. Yes, you can go ahead and call me a fucking edgy weeb for that. I collect swords, so I understand people who have a similar hobby in collecting guns, but I also see guns as, you know, they're kind of a tool to me. And yeah, a lot of them are pretty cool, sure, and it would be very nice to have a collection, but guns are ultimately a tool. I got a break barrel single shot shotgun for home defense, and I got myself a regular old pump action shotgun for hunting. And that's what I need. Does that mean that you should dictate what other people do with their interests? Nah, but with weapons keeping and maintaining, that is something that does need to be monitored as to who is allowed into it. Because, you know, if we let Dr. Nefario into the science lab with dangerous chemicals, there's obviously going to be a problem. Dude literally has Nefarious in his name. Of course he's got some villainous intentions. Whereas we just let Joe Schmo into the science lab, nothing's going to go wrong. Same way as if we let some edgy-ass motherfucker who clearly only wants to hurt people into gun collecting as a hobby, we all know what's going to happen. It happens a lot. A lot, and it's kind of a huge problem. So, FUD lore is BS, is an opinionated take. I gave you my opinion. If we disagree on that, oh no. It's not the end of the fucking world. Don't shit your pants. Don't go write a fucking essay in the comments. It's not the end of the world. It's not that big of a deal. If you think FUD lore is BS, good on you, bud. I respect that. Alright, I've taken, like 2 weeks of recording in between the last segment and this one, mostly to finish the Ultimate True Crime series, so go ahead and check that out if you haven't already. Next entry, where I'm not fucking ear raping you violently with how close my microphone is to my mouth. Mini milsurp resporterized. Now, this is kind of obvious. Many military surplus weapons were sporterized because military surplus is, you know, so many guns that not even the fucking US military needs them, and they can't sell them to police departments, so they sell them to civilians, which means there's a shit ton in circulation. And you give a bunch of random Joe fucking schmoes guns, eventually someone is gonna be mad lad enough to modify them. It's like cars. Which means that you find mini-sporterized military surplus rifles, which in the modern era is a big problem for people who are like, ooh, my historical accuracy. But at the time, it was just a good way of making your gun more functional by sporterizing it. Bayonets. Now, we all know bayonets as a very popular kind of bread sold in France. It's long, it's crusty on the outside for whatever reason, and by crusty I mean it has a crust. Bayonets are really good if you want to make a Subway sandwich. Yeah, I'm fucking with you. That's a baguette. A bayonet is a knife you affix to the end of your gun to basically make it a fucking spear. Why is it on military surplus, Iceberg? Because bayonets are also military surplus. You see, there's this really cool thing about effective war strategies. They just don't stop being effective, and metal pointy stick that's stabby always been effective. There's like 3 things every human society invented everywhere, and it was pancakes, spoken language, and spear. Literally every set of monkeys on this planet figured out some variation of those 3 things. Of fucking course we have bayonets to throw on there. You throw monkey into post-industrial society, or post-industrial revolution society, it's still monkey. Monkeys still poke with stick. Monkey with stick, break game. So yeah, bayonets. Turn shoot metal stick cannon hand thing into stab. And they're pretty cool, I mean. Bayonets work close quarters if you need to fucking just stab someone real quick. Overall, though, if you're using a bayonet, you're pretty much fucked. Unless you have muskets, in which case you might be better off just using the bayonet. Rimmed versus rimless. Now, rimmed versus rimless is something that I had no fucking clue about myself, so I took to my favorite website. No, not Pornhub, I quit that shit long ago. Wikipedia. I went to Wikipedia, which if you don't donate to already, you should donate to. Donating to Wikipedia is a good thing. Now, a rimmed cartridge has a lot of head space and a flange for a extractor to remove it. It's very good for guns like revolvers or break barrel rifles. Rimless is where the flange that goes around that is not wider than the body. We have this really cool picture right here that does a lot more explaining, a lot more coherently than I can. Isn't that neat? The STG-44 was the first assault rifle. Now, there was a big problem, a big fucky-wucky that generals were making between the 1860s to the 1920s, which is that, we kept lining people up as if we still had muskets and doing shit like trenches, when in reality we did not have muskets. We had much more interesting and intriguing things, and thus we developed rifles that were lethal at ranges beyond what the human eye could see unassisted at 2,000 meters, and we also had guns that were very effective at close range, like pistols, shotguns, and submachine guns. But you know what we didn't fucking have? That's right, no in-between, because why would we need a mid-ranged weapon? That's right, we don't. And then in 1938, boom. I forgot his name, so I'm gonna fucking Google it.
A few moments later.
Hugo Schmeisser. So in 1938, Hugo Schmeisser developed a gun that worked perfectly at that mid-range. It was effective at mid-range combat, and that became the assault rifle, which was good, because realistically, any gun is effective at close range. It's just how much further you can sling the hot metal shits that we call bullets. And the STG-44 was the first successful mass-produced assault rifle, a class of firearm which would rapidly become the most carried by soldiers, because believe it or not, mid-range is a pretty good way to kit out your soldiers. Words are hard right now, okay? Work with me. Common milsurp calibers are 7.62 by 5.4 and 30-06. Correct. Yes. Good job. You figured it out. These bullet sizes were very popular and still remain very popular because guns work on a weird legacy system. But yes, correct. That is bullet size that was commonly used and is still very commonly used because 7.62 by 5.4 NATO goes in a lot of the really popular guns, same as 30-06, which is a favorite for deer hunting. Don't shoot corrosive ammo. Let's think very long and fucking hard. If you shoot corrosive ammo, what will happen to your firearm? 1. Your firearm will be fine. 2. Your firearm will be magically cleaned. C. Your firearm is gonna get corroded because it's in the fucking name corrosive ammo. If you guessed C, good job. If you wondered why I said C instead of 3, I don't know, I'm just trying to be funny here, man. Corrosive ammo is not good for your gun, you're gonna need to clean it out more, and if you have an actual, classic military surplus firearm, it's probably better that you take good care of it and, not shoot stuff that's gonna melt the fucking barrel out of it. Arasakas and Carcanos aren't bad guns. Nice opinion, just one problem. I'm living inside your walls. Stripper clips and Mannlicher versus Mauser clips. So the Mauser stripper clips are a bit more smooth, a bit more refined. They automatically eject upon closing the bolt, or at least that's what I read on the Wikipedia, whereas Mannlicher stripper clips are not as refined, and you kind of gotta fuck around with them to get them to, pop out. Don't shoot high-power ammo in a Garand. Yeah, if you get your M1 Garand and you load up some regular-ass high-powered ammo, it's a good way to really fuck your gun up, so just don't. Wendigoon got extremely famous by just talking to a camera. I swear to God, I'm coming for that man. I'm coming for his house. I'm coming for his dog, even. Shit, his dad? I'm coming for that, too. I have a false rivalry with Wendigoon that only goes one way. It's because that son of a bitch did it before I could. So anyway, welcome to the third level. Yeah, we're on the third level now. So, yeah. I'm trying out this face thing, except instead of a nice, clean, put-together room that shows that I'm clearly mentally stable and have my life together, I'm in the, depression dungeon. Now let's get into this shit. Cock on close versus cock on open actions. Now, this entry is dependent on whether or not your mother wants me to finish on her bra or if your mother wants me to finish in her mouth. Just kidding, there's actually a nice little Reddit explanation here. So, when you pull up the bolt handle of a Mosin Nagant or a 98 Mauser, you're also pushing the striker to the rear, onto the rears with a cam, thus cocking on open. With an SMLE, the striker only engages and holds on the sear as you slide the bolt close, thus cocking on close. Does that make sense? I don't know. Harold Hardraid? 36? Sure, we'll go with that. 1903 Springfield is a Mauser action. Listen, Springfield stole from Mauser so much that even though Mauser never sued, both lawyers on both sides agreed that if a lawsuit ever happened, it'd be a fucking slam dunk in Mauser's department. So, yeah, the 1903 Springfield might as well just be a Mauser gun, as well as a lot of older Springfield rifles. Alright, round nose versus Spitzer-shaped bullets. We have a Spitzer bullet up at the top here and a round nose bullet down at the bottom there. A Spitzer bullet is more aerodynamic, but it also tends to, come the fuck apart inside of a body, whereas a round nose bullet is not as aerodynamic, but it retains its shape very well even after going through flesh. Why? What does it even matter? It doesn't really. We're all just monkeys killing each other with flying fucking pebbles. And also sometimes deer. Deer too. Fuck those deer. Smooth bore versus rifled barrel. This one's pretty simple. A smooth bore barrel has no shit in it. It's just metal. No shit. Rifled barrel is got the shit. It's got the good shit. Make bullet go spinny. Spinny bullet more accurate. Cosmo Line. Despite sounding like the name of a second-rate club that absolutely sells cocaine, Cosmo Line is actually an anti-rust and anti-wear wax type material that you rub on the bits of your gun you don't want to go bye-bye, and then it doesn't let it rust. Cool stuff, am I right? Obrez rifles. Now, an Obrez rifle is not an official, manufactured thing. An Obrez rifle is just typically a sawed-off Mosin Nagant, where the stock and the barrel have been shortened until it looks like this weird nubby fuck. Import markings. It's misspelt on the Iceberg, but import markings are when a gun is imported from outside the United States. Somebody's gotta take a big hot stamp and they gotta slap that shit somewhere on the gun. It's most often somewhere on the barrel. I haven't heard of it anywhere else. It's kind of frowned upon for whatever reason in the firearms community because some people view it as taking away from the gun. However, it is a very good way to legitimize your rifle as a military surplus or authentic historical rifle. So some people think that it adds value. It's very interesting, the dichotomy and the split on import markings. What does that mean? It just means that some people think things, which is 99.999% of human history and human experiences. Big fucking shocker, I know. CA-87 blaster from Star Wars is actually just an Obraz Lee Einfield. Yeah, you know, with Star Wars, I haven't played much Battlefront, surprising, I know. But I would have thought there was more star to the wars here. That is exactly what this is. This doesn't look like it came out of Star Wars. It looks like someone just put a fucking fart can over a tiny barrel of a Lee Einfield. So, pretty self-explanatory. Image here does all the work for me. C&R license, shorthand for cheating on Rihanna license if you're ASAP Rocky because somehow that dumbass managed to fumble the fucking ball harder than anyone in history. Just kidding, a C&R license is actually a Curios and Relics license. What does this mean? It means if a gun is over 50 years old, or if it's just weirdly interesting for reasons that other guns are not. The ATF will not shit their pants if you purchase one, and as a matter of fact, you can purchase a C&R rifle or gun or firearm directly rather than going through third party. Why does this matter? Because the ATF does not fuck around. Do you remember what happened in Waco? They'll do that shit again. The ATF will fuck your wife, kill your dog, and then kill your wife, and then fuck your wife again. The ATF does not play. They are more villainous than the Joker, easily. Smokeless powder can't be used in black powder guns. Much the same with communication, warfare, and porn. As time goes on, humans advance all the things that they do. Warfare especially, and what is warfare primarily driven around besides pointlessly killing each other? That's right, gunpowder. And what do we do with gunpowder? We constantly advance it. So black powder guns are built for black powder, and smokeless powder is not black powder. As a matter of fact, modern smokeless powder is a lot more efficient than black powder. This is a problem, because if you have a black powder gun that is built for black powder explosions, and you suddenly put the much more pressurizing smokeless powder in there, you're going to find out what happens when you turn your gun into the projectile. So, don't put smokeless powder in a black powder gun. Your gun will not be a very happy camper. It might be a happy camper in a few dozen pieces around the firing yard, and also probably in you, because if the gun blows up while you're holding it, that's a big problem. Trainer rifle blowing up with live ammo, and don't shoot live ammo in smoothbore Arasakas. Okay, that was a bit of a struggle to read. Spelling's a bit all over the place on this Iceberg, but that's okay. She's quirky anyways. We love her, totally. So, training rifles are obviously not meant to handle live rounds. They're meant to be loaded with blanks. So what happens when you put a live round in a training rifle? I'll tell you what happens. It does the same shit that most of the stuff I'm telling you not to do on this Iceberg will cause. Gun goes splody. And that's a problem. Same deal with smoothbore Arasakas. The smoothbore Arasaka is not a functional rifle. It is classified as a firearm by the ATF because the ATF does as the ATF will, but it is not at all viable as a firearm because a smoothbore Arasaka is a training rifle and thus will, fucking explode if you go ahead and you put live ammo in there. So don't. Han Solo's blaster is a C96 Mauser. So here's a airsoft replica of a C96 Mauser pistol right here. Linthari, go ahead and get us side by side with Han Solo's blaster. Thank you very much for that. Big preach. Everyone comment big preach to my editor down in the comments below. Now, anyway, getting back on topic, George Lucas fucking loved military history. World War II, Vietnam, he dug that shit up. He ate it up. He gobbled it the same way you would gobble a lover's asshole. And that is why so many Star Wars guns are, well, similar to World War II guns. And also, George Lucas could buy the guns and then demill them and make them props, which is also why you see a lot of World War II guns. But yeah, Han Solo uses a Space C96 Mauser. You probably thought after the last little segment between levels that my face would be in this one again, and you'd be dead wrong. So, I am greasy and unshowered and unshaved after a 12-hour shift. What a great way to end my day than with more recording. Aw yeah, baby. If you're still watching, thank you so much for that, big preach. Really, for real, means the world to me. Now, without further ado, let's go ahead and get further into this thing. Faked M1 paratrooper carbine. The M1A1 carbine was the M1 Garand's younger brother that was thrown in with Yankee paratroopers during World War II. Obviously, it's iconic, it's super fucking ballin', and clearly some people want those, especially because they're a lightweight gun with decent power that's semi-automatic. It's a great survivalist rifle. Honestly, if I could get my hands on one, I would. Even though I believe FUD lore. But, there were a lot of them faked because, a lot of people wanted this thing. And eventually, if enough people want a thing, they're gonna start faking them. And faking them is profitable until some asshole realizes, hey, wait a minute, I've been gypped. This is a fake. So yeah, there's a lot of faked M1 paratrooper carbines out there. War trophy guns. Again, a primary theme of this iceberg is that human is just monkey. Monkey go other monkey house. Beat the shit out of other monkey. Take monkey favorite stick. Now, monkey 1 has cool stick, and monkey 2 has just had the shit beaten out of him, and he lost his favorite stick. That is war trophy guns in a nutshell. You go over, you kick someone's fucking ass, you kill their friends, and then you're like, yeah, you, survivor, now that you surrendered, I'm taking your shit. And what are they gonna do about it? That's right, nothing. And that's how we ended up with a shit ton of Japanese stuff in America. Very interesting story. Trench art stocks. This is one of the most interesting entries on this iceberg, I'll be honest. So, you throw a bunch of people in trenches long enough and they're gonna get pretty fucking bored. Congratulations, you have most of World War I on top of some diseases spreading around. And also, some very not safe for warfare tactics, NSFW if you will. But eventually you get all these people thrown in there with a bunch of wood stocks and knives and shit and just nothing to do but stare at the enemy for fucking weeks, and then maybe, just maybe, if you're really lucky or unlucky depending on how long you've been in that trench, someone will be like, okay assholes, it's time to charge to your death, and then you did that. Or you just took pot shots at each other with very early machine guns. Again, World War I. The war to end all wars. So glad humanity learned from that one and we just stopped having war after that. Anyway, we had all these people in trenches, they got bored, they started making art, and I'm leaving it up to my editor, who's been doing a pretty balling job of the edit so far, thank you Linthari, to go ahead and have the interesting trench art stocks on screen as I've been explaining this entire entry. And you might be thinking, well, if they were before you said this, why are you explaining that? And that's because this part of the video is for my editor, not you. Just kidding. All of it's for everyone. Another pen approved. Faked 1897 trench guns. Very few things, and I mean very few things, make me feel patriotic about America in the slightest. One of them being that the Union won the Civil War, because fuck those southern snakes, baby. And the other one being the goddamn 1897 trench gun. The Germans keep trying to raid your trenches. Easy solution. Amputate them with fucking solid slugs of red, white, and blue freedom. God damn! You take a shotgun, you make it fully semi-automatic, to quote a politician who knows nothing about guns, and you throw those Yankees into Europe, and holy shit do they clean things up! So much so that Germany whines like a little bitch baby. Well, we used chemical gases to fuck up your lungs, but Americans used shotguns. God, I love the 1897 trench gun. And that's why A lot of people love the 1897 trench gun, because what is more Sigma grind set than simply dropping into a trench and some bitch boy with a rifle that's meant for medium range is like, oh, guess I gotta shoot him. Nope. Amputation. Gone. That dude's body, obliterated. The people behind him, also fucked. Is it a terrible, terrible expensive human life? You bet your sweet cheeks, baby. But oh my god, the weapon that delivered it. So a lot of people wanted trench guns after the war. You know, trench sweepers were very popular for obvious reasons, which led to a lot of fakes. Because, you know, thing get popular, thing get fake, fake sell. Person who buy fake, angry. 2012 panic buying of most of the guns. Some people are not the brightest eggs in the crayon box. Some people are silly, goofy, and downright stupid. Some people run out and buy dozens of guns every time a politician says something about changing gun legislature. Congratulations, you have now found the cause behind the 2012 panic buying of most of the guns. There was mention of legislature change, and like mouth-breathing morons, the same ones who crashed the American stock market in 1929, they went out and they started panic buying. Brilliant plan, brilliant play. And, you know, I really think that the 2012 panic buying of most of the guns was justified, because 10 years later, yes, 10 years later in 2022, I can still fucking buy one. Don't be silly. Don't do this. Flaubert rifles / gallery guns. During the Civil War, a revolutionary idea was formed, and not the dumbass ones the Confederates thought they were fighting for. No, this revolutionary idea was that maybe we don't have to shoot guns by stuffing balls and explosives down them, and as a matter of fact, we could save that for the porn postcards of the time. And thus, the bullet, or at least a kind of weird form of bullet as we know it, was born. We take it forward 50 years, and now some French guys figured, hey, you know, I can make bullet that fit in gun. Bullet is very small, gun is dirt cheap, and then I can just sell it to bars and saloons and indoor ranges, and everyone will have one, because what's more fun than shooting shit when you don't have the internet? And oh boy, was he successful. Literally tons of these Flaubert rifles were made. They were chambered in extremely small calibers. We're talking BB cap calibers. I know how to speak, I promise. I think the biggest that they got was 9mm, and there was also some shotgun. Very small bore shotguns that were Flaubert rifles. They were single shot, break barrel, made of the softest steel possible, all around kinda shit quality, but you could buy one for $2.50. Now, albeit in 1910, that was a lot more than $2.50 is today now, because the buying power of the dollar is significantly decreasing, and soon your money will mean absolutely nothing. But that is for a different video. So, Flaubert rifles were dirt cheap, mass-produced, shot, common ammo. Everyone fucking loved them. The problem was they were dirt cheap, mass-produced, shot, dirt cheap ammo. Everyone fucking loved them. And they were made of shitty materials, which means that as these rifles were naturally used, most of them kind of fell the fuck apart, because believe it or not, soft steel and highly corrosive old-timey gunpowder do not mix. 1986 full auto ban. Oh boy, I'm gonna have some controversial takes about this one. The 1986 full auto ban was a piece of legislature that effectively banned the production of fully automatic firearms for civilian usage and sale in the United States. You can technically purchase any civilian spec fully automatic rifle and some military spec fully automatic rifles still, but it's gonna be a legal nightmare and there's gonna be a shit ton of paperwork involved. Basically, if your great-grandpa has a fully automatic gun he's kept hidden from the family and you find it when he dies, definitely not something that happened to me. Yeah, no, that's a bad joke to lead with. That actually didn't happen to me. Please, FBI, I'm begging. leave me alone. Anyway, basically, if someone in your family has a fully automatic rifle, you can be grandfathered into owning a fully automatic rifle. Otherwise, get prepared to slap down a solid 100K for the Class 3 firearms license. Anyway, the full auto ban, it just stopped the sale of machine guns to civilians. And here's a controversial take. I think this is a fucking good thing. Most Americans are too goddamn stupid to even be trusted with a regular firearm. And a lot of those dumbasses are firearm owners regardless. If any Joe Schmo could just buy a machine gun, I'd be terrified. Not because that Joe Schmo is scary because he has a machine gun, but that Joe Schmo is too stupid to understand why he might be scary when he has a machine gun. So, yeah, I think taking machine guns out of civilian circulation was overall kind of a good thing. Could you imagine Columbine if they had gotten their hands on an M16? That would have been a completely different story. Ruger Mark IV competition pistol action is based on Nambu pistols action. On screen we have a Ruger Mark III or Mark IV competition pistol, and next to that picture we have a picture of a Nambu pistol. Believe it or not, gun companies don't need to reinvent the fucking wheel whenever they come up with something, so yeah, this is pretty plausible. Why would Ruger go out of their way to do something new when they could just have a relatively unique design, kinda hammer out all the shitty aspects of it, and wham bam thank you ma'am, you've got a unique iconic gun. Except it's not unique or iconic. And barely even a gun. Rolling block rifles. On screen now is a video demonstrating how a rolling block rifle works. Credits to the YouTube channel who made the video, thank you, but also I'm only using the first 11 seconds so you can't copyright claim me, and it's fair use because I'm discussing the topic. As you can see, rolling block rifles are single-shot rifles where the breech block itself rotates to form the seal, which also allows the user to breech load the rifle. They're single-shot. They were super popular in Sweden for moose hunting, and they were super popular in America before that because Americans decided for whatever stupid fucking reason that we were going to kill all the naturally occurring cows here, also known as bison. So rolling block rifles are single-shot, relatively high-powered rifles. Of course, like most rifles of the time in the ye olden days, yes, it uses shells, yes, some of them probably do still exist to this day, but if you get your hands on an old antique rolling block rifle, don't put, new ammo down it. It's gonna fucking explode. Just like the bison populations probably won't ever do again. Realistically, they're on their last legs. Just like the rest of life on this planet, except for humans, rats, and cockroaches, and everything else we eat. Okay, good God, we're on to level 5. I'm noticing now that there's a little indicator on the side here that you're supposed to... Basically, the creator of the Iceberg already said the things for me, and I'm not saying what the creator put here. So level 5 is supposed to be a military surplus historian. For me, level 5 is 12 a.m. after a 12-hour shift on 3 hours of sleep, recording this video because the grind set stops for nothing. If you're still here, thank you so much for watching, really appreciate it. Go ahead and just consider subscribing because, the rest of the video from here on is going to be much of the same, and a lot of the content I produce is going to be, honestly, probably better than this one, so... if you could go ahead and just press the little red button, I'd really appreciate it. But if I haven't convinced you yet, or if you're already subscribed and want me to just shut up and get on with it, buckle your fuckles, get cozy, because we're going into the rest of this thing. AK-47 is not a copycat of the STG-44. The AK-47 and the STG-44 both being manufactured in a similar time doing a similar thing. Obviously, some people are going to look at that and be like, it's the same! Wrong. The AK-47 uses a rotating bolt system, whereas the STG-44 uses a tilting bolt system. Both achieve the same thing, but it's slightly different in mechanics. And once again, gun creators and manufacturers do not need to reinvent the fucking wheel every time that they go and make a gun. Otherwise, we would not have much of what we have in terms of firearms today. The Dardic gun. Somebody get forgotten weapons on this shit, because this is a weird little thing. So the Dardic gun is a hybrid semi-automatic pistol / revolver. Basically, the US military discovered, hey, triangular rounds, those are somehow more space efficient, because a triangle is the most powerful shape in nature, and thus anything triangular is far more powerful. You want to get stronger? Get triangular. Anyway, the Dardic gun was chambered in very peculiar triangular rounds. However, the bullets were still regular bullets. The shells were just covered in plastic to make for the triangle shape, and the Dardic gun was this wonky-ass little semi-automatic revolver thingy that could also be clipped into a larger rifle. Obviously, it failed, but it's just weird. It's really weird. All the lead and industrial muck in the water really fucked with people from, like, the start of the Industrial Revolution, honestly, until today. It's still fucking with people today. Once again, the Industrial Revolution and its consequences are far greater than any stupid monkey could have ever foreseen, and the Dardic gun is yet another example of that. Fedorov Automat could be the first assault rifle also. Remember when I talked about the STG-44 or earlier and how it was the first assault rifle? Well, it was the first mass-produced assault rifle. A lot of guns operated in a similar fashion, but just simply never caught on. The Fedorov Automat is another one of those that contends for first ever assault rifle status. But again, it wasn't fully mass-produced, so it's not as popular. And also, I mean, this is just like neckbeards arguing over a dusty piece of gun lore. It doesn't really matter all too much. It's neat to speculate about, but also not that deep. Really not that deep. Rare calibers like 32 Pedersen and 30-03. Now, the 32 Pedersen round, when I googled it, I actually found absolutely fucking nothing but a sailboat sketch, and when I searched bullet in there, I got something for 32 Pedersen, so maybe OP misspelled some shit, I don't know. Joey, you're in the comments most likely, go ahead and enlighten me down below. 30-03 is just, it's just a slightly smaller 30-06, it's really only the width that's fucked with, so it's a second measurement. The bullet's basically the same thing. But anyway, rare calibers, you know, we've been making guns for hundreds of years at this point because, for whatever reason, humanity really like it to make explosions. Monkey figure out how make stick go bang, and far away, monkey do it again and again. You know, it's like a pleasure button for some people. And thus, with all of these gun inventions, you know, the bang stick has to make shit go bang. So you gotta make the shit that go bang to go into the bang stick. That is your bullet. You make enough bang sticks, eventually they're gonna need different kinds of bullets, which is why we have all of these weird and wonky ass ammunitions just kinda chilling around out there. Because everyone was like, nah, we don't need to buy one specific kind of gun, we'll make our own, and our own bullet, and suddenly we have thousands of ammunitions running around, but honestly, it's better than, like, Springfield owning everything. General Liu Rifle. The General Liu Rifle is special because it's a semi-automatic rifle, similar in taste and blend to the M1 Garand. The thing is, it came a nice whopping 15 years beforehand. That's right, in 1914, whereas the M1 Garand entered production late 1929 to early 1930, which is a really bad time to be coming out with a gun, but hey, they did it. And the M1 Garand was successful, but the General Liu rifle did it first, because once again, you don't have to reinvent the fucking wheel. Also, with this, see, if you have an idea and then someone else has an idea, and then the second person gets wildly popular, The idea is no longer yours. Look at Thomas Edison and the light bulb, that dirty, thieving bastard. Rebated rim and semi-rim calibers. I discussed this earlier. There's different kinds of rims on different kinds of bullets for extracting bullets, for not extracting bullets. I don't feel like rereading it again. A rebated rim is a kind of rebated rim. It's in the name. Semi-rim also in the name. There's kind of a rim there, kind of not. Rebated is shaped a little funny. That's the most you're getting out of me. It's late. I'm actually on a Wikipedia article this time purely because it's late and I don't think I could remember the jokes I made if I wasn't staring at the white page that is keeping me awake. So the Sabrigati is the first selective firearm, is basically explaining that the Sabrigati rifle, made and tested in the final years of the 19th century by Amerigo Sabrigati, an officer in the Royal Italian Army, was in fact the first selective fire rifle. It was either fully automatic or single shot. Isn't that neat? What's also neat is that Amerigo is the Italian first name that America is based on. Yeah, that's right. Did you ever think to, wonder why we named this shit America? Well, let me tell you why. Christopher Columbus did not discover America, and if you believe that, I'm sorry you've been lied to. That dumbass washed up on the fucking Cuban Islands in the Bermuda. My geography is all wrong. He washed up not America. He in islands. Before that, an Italian fella by the name of Amerigo Vespucci sailed and he saw America. And he came back and was like, hey, yo, we got a continent over there. And then we named it after Amerigo Vespucci. So that guy's got the same name as America, Amerigo Sabrigati, which is also interesting because, like America, he clearly had a love of guns. Now, even though this Sabrigati rifle is clearly kind of ahead of its time and a good idea, no government really gave a fuck, and they went on to use outdated tactics with modern weaponry anyways, and did not have selective firearms at that point. Actually, I think they did. I don't remember for sure, and like I said, it's getting real late, so I am not gonna Google it. Lantari, if you feel like fixing it, go ahead. If not, I respect that. By fix it, I mean display the information. The Pedadson device. Once again, we see a return of the mysterious Pedadson. Now, here's the thing. There is no Pedadson device, and I'm not going to spend the time digging one up. What there is a Peterson device. So, OP, thank you so much for trolling me with your misspelling. We love to see it. Keep the grind up. Now, the Peterson device is this neat, nifty little thing that let people turn their bolt-action and semi-automatic rifles, not bolt-action, just semi-automatic actually, I believe, into submachine guns. You get your bullets, you stack that bad boy, you stack them in the Peterson device, you slam your Peterson device on top of the gun so that it's acting as a magazine, and then wham bam thank you ma'am, you got that shit, and it's fully automatic, and you already know it. People love fully automatic, unless you're politicians in 1986. Or people who don't have a gun getting gunned down by the US Army because they have no problem killing innocents. Caveat emptor rifle. I'm here on the Forgotten Weapons website. Thank you, Lord and Savior Ian, for the opportunity to read about this. The Caveat emptor rifle is a submachine gun that looks like an STG-45 prototype. There's just some problems, like the magazine, a bit too wide, it uses a different bullet, the stock, not quite right, things aren't stamped the way the Germans stamped them, and that's because this is actually a Swiss gun. It's not an STG-45 at all. The Caveat emptor is a Swiss experimental rifle that kind of steals from German ideas because for the, fifth time, you don't need to reinvent the wheel when you make a gun. So yeah, that's cool. Garand carbine. I have zero clue why this is so low on the Iceberg. The M1 Garand is one of the most well-known rifles of all time. The M1A1 carbine is again one of the most well-known rifles of all time. The M1 carbine is again one of the most well-known firearms of all time. As a matter of fact, they still have a modern older sibling sold to this day on Springfield's website. Is it absolutely astronomical, $1,800, when in reality you could buy the same gun from a redneck hick for about $700 and there'd be no paperwork? Yes, but it's still manufactured and sold. So I have zero clue why the carbine is this low on the Iceberg. It really should not be here. This should be like first or second level knowledge. Anyways, the Garand carbine is a semi-automatic M1 Garand. There's bolt-action M1 Garands, I think. Don't quote me on that. And there is semi-automatic M1 Garands. A semi-automatic rifle, also known as a carbine, thus Garand carbine. I really don't know why this is so low on the Iceberg. I'm at the Pizza Hut. I'm at the Taco Bell. I'm at the combination Pizza Hut and Taco Bell. And that is what the Nambu sword pistol is. As you can see, this is a katana, or at least a katana blade, and its hilt is a Nambu pistol. Why? That's a great fucking question. This is what the Japanese did before hentai. Just ponder on that. Now, of course, as a sword enthusiast, I am much more of a medieval weapons enthusiast than I am a gun enthusiast. A pistol handle would really fuck with the balance of the blade. It makes for an ineffective crossguard because, you know, if a sword gets down there on the pistol part, you're gonna fuck up the pistol part. The balance would probably be really fucked because that handle does not have much weight on its own unless it's loaded, and if you fired it, you'd probably mess with the entire balancing of your blade, and you'd also probably fuck with your hilt weight, which would make the entire sword, again, out of balance. This would be a front-heavy nightmare to wield. But some madman looked at a katana, looked at his pistol, and said, yeah, I can do this. I want to see this shit in Demon Slayer. I want to see some dude running a demon's fade with a Nambu sword pistol, okay? I'll keep it real with you. It's goofy, it's stupid, it's impractical as all hell, and I fucking love it. This is a 10 out of 10. This makes the entire video worth it, just to know that this thing exists. Bullpup M1903, the Springfield Model 1903, and a bullpup configuration of it. Oh my god. So, bullpup rifles are when the magazine, or where the bullet go, is behind the trigger. Basically lets you get maximum barrel length in an 80-80 gun, which is why it's popular. But this is a terrible example of bullpup, and whoever put this together ought to be fucking ashamed. I don't even understand how one person could hold this. This gun could not have had a competent person involved in its design. A comment on Reddit put it perfectly, which is, it's just so fucking ugly. SDK silenced rifle. This entry has brought me to a gun wiki. Thank you, fandom.com, for that. However, this Halo ad at the top is bad. If you wanted to make The Mandalorian 2, just make The Mandalorian 2. Don't smear Halo's name like that. Anyway, back on topic, as the ad changes. Back on topic, the SDK is a supposed experimental rifle that was built in to be silenced and apparently commissioned by Graf von Helldorf for the Gestapo. The problem is that the rifle that we do have, or at least a few that we did, had, of course, serial number 2, serial number 1, and a few others like that, which if it was a new model of gun, that would make sense. The thing is, there's just no paperwork surrounding the gun, and the guy who brought it over to America, supposedly Lieutenant Colonel James P. Atwood, was known as a Nazi memorabilia collector and scammer, getting knives, claiming they were Nazi knives, making a false story, and then selling them for profit. So I really don't think this gun was real. Also, just take a look at this thing. Like, yeah, it's a bullpup bolt-action rifle. The problem is the bolt is in the stock. I don't believe that is how you use a bolt-action rifle. It's got to be a straight line, because the bolt... I'm no gun design expert, but I'm pretty sure the bolt being close to the barrel is kind of an important thing. And the way that this gun curves doesn't really make it seem usable. There's also just the fact of, why would someone have this commissioned? Yeah, I get it. I mean, doing things for the sillies, for the goofs is fun. But why would the Gestapo have this thing created? It just doesn't make sense to me. So this is most likely a fucking scam, which makes sense, because again, this seems like a nonsensical design, and when the gun was analyzed, it seemed more suggested that the gun was commissioned in West Berlin after World War II, so that way, you know, James P. Atwood could scam yet again. For real, I have no fucking clue. Okay, so if the barrel is lower, like this, that would make sense for the charging to be in the stock. It just seems impractical. Really impractical. Nazi belt buckle pistol. So I'm on a Wikipedia page. Again, God bless Wikipedia. I am once again asking you to financially support Wikipedia. Donate to them if you can. And there's also a nice little picture of this wonky ass thing right up on screen too. But anyway, the Nazi belt buckle pistol is a belt buckle that doubles as a pistol. It is a firearm consisting of 4 .22 short barrels and lockwork concealed within an SS belt buckle. The barrels were 2 inches long and smooth bore. A lever was pressed which allowed the spring-loaded buckle to pivot downwards, exposing the barrels. The thing is they're just... they're so fucking weird. Now, they were designed by Louis Marquis while he was a prisoner of war during World War I. The thing is that they're just so fucking wonky. These specialized pistols were used near the demise of Nazi Germany, and only 15 were ever produced for SS officers who guarded Hitler. But I don't see how this could be useful. Like, what are you supposed to do? Oh my god, an assassin! Let me get my cock gun! M3 carbine. The M3 carbine is a modified M2 carbine, which is in and of itself a modified M1 carbine. So basically what the M3 is the brilliant geniuses at the Inland Division of General Motors were told by the US government, hey, we need something we can use at range and in low light conditions. And what these madmen, these brilliant geniuses came up with was slapping a big-ass infrared receiving scope on the gun. So here's a picture of it. This thing is just so bizarre, but it can pick up 200 to 300 yards away in low-light conditions because of infrared tech. Surprisingly, it did see some usage in 1945. They were deployed on the field in the Battle of Okinawa, but I don't understand what sorry son of a bitch would be given this gun and think, yeah, I can fight with this. This isn't something you can move. That looks so unwieldy. So utterly useless. I mean, yeah, it's still a gun, but that scope, just take it off. You're better off without it. My brother in Christ, you do not need to see in the dark that bad. Nambu Bipod Arasaka. Now, Nambu, being a gun company, did make bipods for LMGs, light machine guns. Arasaka, being a gun company, made LMGs or light machine guns, specifically the Type 96 and Type 99. So, of course, some fucking genius out there had the idea of a Nambu bipod on an Arasaka, a Type 99 Arasaka. Now, when I was looking around, looking into this, I was kind of confused, because Nambu and Arasaka, what? But it turns out that there is actually a Type 99 Arasaka out there with a Nambu bipod. They had to shorten the stock to fit the band, and then they slapped the bipod on there. It's weird. I don't know if this happened after World War II or if some very confused Japanese soldier did this, but regardless, it's very strange to see. Feels kind of wrong somehow, but yep, that is that entry. U.S. Model 45A. The U.S. Model 45A was a bullpup light machine gun / rifle developed for usage by the U.S. in the Pacific Theater during the closing years of World War II. It never really passed the experimental mock-up phase of production, and that is because the victorious post-war years were pretty goddamn terrible to be manufacturing and standardizing new rifles for the U.S. Army in. Hence the shitty introduction of the M16 during Nam. But the US Model 45A, kind of a weird, wonky bullpup rifle with the pistol grip very far forward. It's definitely a thing. It definitely existed. It sure was. 6.5mm Fedorov. Remember the Fedorov automat that I talked about earlier? 6.5mm Fedorov was around that it was chambered in.
In a quarter ounce, full count, large amount, shop around, designer down, dribble down.
There's still equipment stuck in the Alps from the Italian front in World War I. Did you really think they were gonna go back for that shit after they got their asses kicked? Nah. They left it. It's still there, fam. A 100-year round could still be shot. Bullets don't expire. Gunpowder does not get moldy the way that cheese does. Even though cheese is technically milk that got moldy. So you can find a 100-year-old round, load that shit into a gun, and still shoot it. Lost prototype guns. There are some prototype guns out there that will never be found, that will never be remembered, that will never even be thought of. Such is the process with creation. Sometimes a person makes a thing, and sometimes that thing will never see the light of day. All that love and effort for nothing, to be left to rot with dust, with the dirt. So yeah, some guns will never be found. There are an unknown amount of military surplus rifles that can never be recovered from the battlefields. Yet, you know, when people die, they tend to drop their shit. When people run, they tend to drop their shit. And when you have widespread conflicts, people tend to lose their shit in more than one way. So, there are an unknown amount of rifles just chilling out there in the middle of Europe. Big chillin'. Now here is my plan. When I get rich, when I have a few $1 million to my name, I'm simply taking a private jet, a team of people with metal detectors, and I am just scouring the European and Chinese wilderness and maybe even the Japanese wilderness, for everything that I can get. I am talking every single weapon I can find, and then I'm taking it home. And what are the government officials gonna do? Stop me? I'm rich. Money is power, baby. And you can help me by subscribing to my channel if you're still watching. Which, if you're still watching, thank you. No rifling is the same on same models of guns. Yep, that's right. There is literally every blank is personalized in real life. Rifling is the bit in the barrel that makes a bullet go spinny, and spinny bullet go further, be more accurate. Spinny bullet is good for bullet. And hence, a lot of guns are rifled, unless they're smoothbore, which is not rifled. And rifling is unique to each barrel, which is one of the few not bullshit things about forensic science. Yes, that's right, we found a way to bring forensic science into it, because I can never escape the fucking true crime series playlist up there if you'd like 24 hours plus of me depressedly talking about true crime incidents. But anyway, no rifling is the same on any model of gun. It's unique, and that is why guns can be traced if you manage to find the bullet, and then the bullet is intact enough for rifling marks to be on it. Whole big shtick. Military surplus guns are still in use in combat today around the world. If it works, use it, and that's what a lot of people do. Just because the guns are old does not mean they're completely ineffective. Gun is gun. Gun is still wildly fucking efficient at killing, and thus gun is still in use when gun needs to be used. These guns served in World War II, and afterwards, they're known as reliable, unless you're the M16, or the Carcano rifle, or a few other models. And thus, insurgents and people who just need to be armed are still using them in combat around the world today. Congrats at the last entry. It's just me and you now. Me and you. At the last level, not the last entry. I misspoke. I'm probably gonna pay for that somehow. Every military surplus is unique/personalized. The belief in the elixir of life caused the creation of gunpowder. This is supposedly true. It's been so long since gunpowder was invented, roughly 850 AD during the Tang dynasty in China, that we can never say for certain. However, the story goes that enterprising alchemists wished to create something that would lengthen life, make life last forever, life eternal. And they mixed all the components that conveniently happen to make some people's favorite and some people's least favorite explosive powder. This, of course, has zero life-lengthening effects, but when you expose it to fire like those alchemists did, you fucking die. So, yeah, that's neat. Imagine being those guys, just wanting to create the elixir of life, and instead inadvertently causing the deaths of hundreds of millions. It's gotta be the biggest Curb Your Enthusiasm moment in history. All FUD lore has a grain of truth to it. Yeah, that's right, FUD lore does have a grain of truth to it. You want a shotgun? Sure. You want a pistol? Sure. You want a gun for hunting? Sure. Do you need to own a fucking machine gun? No. No, you don't. Japanese were guns dumped into Tokyo Harbor? My man, that sentence, not good. Japanese guns were dumped into Tokyo Harbor at the end of World War II. You know, after the US came through and fucked everything up and dropped the sun on Japan twice, Japan was not allowed to have any of the funny shooty bang bangs, so we took them all. And those that weren't taken home, well, they were just dumped into the sea, which is truly a tragedy. Henry Ziegland was killed by a bullet meant to kill him 20 years earlier. So let's hop over to this website, which seems pretty interesting, Old Spirituals. In 1883, in the town of Honey Grove, Texas, yuck, Texas, mid-L, L plus ratio, plus no bitches, plus in Texas. I hate that state. Anyway, Henry Ziegland dumped his fiancée, Maisie Ticknor. She was despondent and committed suicide. Nice. Not nice at all. I'm just saying nice because that left me speechless. Don't do the self-yeet. Her enraged brother decided Ziegland had to die. He went to Ziegland's farm and shot the young man who had hurt his sister. Listen, I'm just gonna give my 2 cents here. If someone's, self-yeeting themselves, committing self-delete, removing themselves from the game, it might not have just been the breakup. It is a lot of things that drive people to do the big S word. So, definitely was not just this guy, but sure, go ahead, brother. Go ahead and shoot that guy. That'll help him. Now, he shot the young man who had hurt his sister, quotation marks on hurt, and then turned the gun on himself. L mindset, don't do that. Unbeknownst to the brother, however, Ziegland didn't die. He wasn't even seriously hurt. The bullet only grazed him before hitting a tree. Now, Ziegland prospered in life, and 20 years after he dodged a literal bullet, he and his son were cutting firewood. They cut down the tree with the bullet in it, and the wood was so tough it was almost impossible to split it with an axe, or so the story goes. So they bored some holes in the fallen tree and put small amounts of dynamite in it, because if that isn't fucking American, I don't know what is. Hey, Dad, we can't cut this tree. What should we do?
Son, grab me the dynamite.
Who the fuck thinks like that? Anyway, Ziegland and his son moved about 50 feet away, and set the dynamite off. The bullet, lodged in the tree, waiting for 20 years for Henry Ziegland, was blown out of the tree with a great force. Unlike me, I have not been blown with great force at all. Sad days. Now the farmer was hit in the left temple and killed instantly by this flying bullet. Isn't that a crazy story? And it's most likely just that, a crazy story. As a matter of fact, the rest of this article on oldspirituals.com is talking about how this is most likely a hoax because there's no evidence of any of these people existing, and also just physics. Like, I mean, it's not impossible, nothing is, due to the law of infinite probability, but it's 1 in a trillion chance, that's for sure. The first gun barrels were made of bamboo. The Chinese, being the first to have access to the funky wonky stuff-go-explodey powder, obviously utilized it in weapons first. Now, saying gun barrel is a bit of a stretch here, but yes, the first barrels were supposedly made of bamboo. This is because bamboo was easier to obtain and process, and also, of course, bamboo is just resilient and grows really fast. Again, easier to obtain and process. Now, it wasn't used in guns per se, but it was used in the fire lance, which was a spear with a cannon strapped onto it, so that's pretty cool. Probably merits its own video, but we did it. Success. That's the last entry. And we did it. That's the end of the video. That's all the entries. Thank you so much for watching. If you're new here, I'm clearly mildly entertaining because you made it to the end of the video. You're clearly mildly bored. We can help each other. Go ahead and just subscribe. Whether you're new here or not, and you made it to the end of the video, thank you so much for making it to the end of the video. It really means the world to me that I can make these silly videos online and post them onto a silly little website and get views. And, you know, it's nice that with every video I get closer to my dream of being a YouTuber, so I really appreciate it, whether you subscribe or not. So, once again, thank you so much. Huge thank you to my 3 patrons, names on screen now. David Height, That's Insane Henry, and AJ. It is with your guys' support that I am capable of keeping my lights on and paying for gas and eating. If you would like to become a patron and, you know, feed me and have your name read at the end of every video and also a bigger say in video suggestions, go ahead and subscribe to the Patreon. Link down in the description below. And also, huge thanks to my editor for editing this video. Thanks as always, Lenthari. Really cranking out the Sigma grind set. It's unreal. Once again, thank you so much for watching. Have a great time. And until next time, Memento Mori.